In the spring of 1887, the most powerful newspaper in the world printed a single letter that seemed to end an Irish leader's career. The Times claimed that Charles Stewart Parnell, the man holding the balance of British politics in his hands, had quietly excused murder. The proof was in his own handwriting, or so the public was told. For 2 years, that letter hung over Parnell like a sentence already passed. Yet the document that promised to destroy him would instead destroy the man who made it. The whole case would turn, in the end, on the spelling of one ordinary word. To understand the accusation, you have to understand the man. Charles Stewart Parnell led the Irish Parliamentary Party at the height of the land war when tenant farmers and landlords were locked in a bitter struggle over rent and eviction. He was cool, controlled, and politically dangerous to the British establishment because his votes could decide who governed. By the late 1880s, Parnell was pressing for Home Rule, a measure of Irish self-government. To his enemies, he was not merely a rival. He was a threat to the Union itself, and a great many powerful people wanted very badly to see him fall. The years before had been soaked in violence. On the 6th of May 1882, in Dublin's Phoenix Park, 2 of the most senior British officials in Ireland were stabbed to death in broad daylight. Lord Frederick Cavendish, the new Chief Secretary, and Thomas Henry Burke, the permanent Undersecretary, were murdered by a secret group calling itself the Invincibles. The killings horrified Britain and Ireland alike. They also poisoned the political air. From that moment, any hint that a nationalist leader had blessed such bloodshed would be the most damaging charge imaginable, and everyone knew it. In March 1887, the Times opened fire with a series of articles under the heading Parnellism and Crime. They argued that constitutional nationalism was simply a respectable mask for terror. Then, on the 18th of April, the paper played its trump card. It published a letter, supposedly written by Parnell, that appeared to forgive the Phoenix Park killing of Burke. The line that mattered suggested Burke had got no more than he deserved. For a newspaper of such authority to print it gave the charge enormous weight. The implication was clear. The constitutional leader had a hidden, murderous face. Parnell rose in the House of Commons and answered with cold precision. The letter, he said, was a villainous and barefaced forgery. He had never written it, never signed it, never seen it. But denial alone could not undo the damage. The letter had been printed beside grave accusations of conspiracy and crime, and the public had read it. To clear his name in the eyes of the nation, Parnell needed more than indignation. He needed a forum where the document itself could be tested, examined, and exposed. The government would soon give him exactly that. In August 1888, Parliament established a special judicial commission of 3 judges to investigate the charges against Parnell and his colleagues. It was an extraordinary body, somewhere between a trial and a public inquiry, and it sat for many months across more than 100 days. The Times had set out to put Irish nationalism on trial. Instead, the commission became the stage on which the newspaper's own evidence would be cross-examined in front of the world. At the center of the dispute stood the letters, and behind the letters stood a man whose name the public did not yet know. That man was Richard Pigott. Born in County Meath in 1835, he had once been a nationalist journalist who owned and ran Irish newspapers. But Pigott was a man of debts and grudges. He had quarreled with the Land League, sold off his papers, and turned to selling information to its enemies. He was, in plain terms, for hire. It was Pigott who had supplied the letters to the Times, pocketing a sum of around £1,780, a small fortune for a man perpetually short of money. The paper had trusted him. That trust was about to collapse. Parnell's defense was led by Sir Charles Russell, one of the finest advocates of the age and later Lord Chief Justice of England. Russell did not need to prove who wrote every word. He needed only to break the man in the witness box. Long before the hearing, a sharp clue had surfaced. A former colleague noticed that in the incriminating letters the word hesitancy was misspelled as hesitancy, with a second E where it did not belong. It was an unusual error, and it happened to be the very same error Richard Pigott made in his own private correspondence. On the 21st and 22nd of February 1889, Pigott took the stand and Russell went to work. The cross-examination was patient and almost gentle, drawing the witness into contradiction after contradiction. Then came the trap. Russell asked Pigott to write out a short list of words for the court, among them the word hesitancy. Without realizing the danger, Pigott set down the same telltale spelling he always used, hesitancy. The mistake in the forged letters and the mistake in the witness box were one and the same. The author of the letters was sitting in the chair. The composure that had carried Pigott for years drained away. Pressed on every inconsistency, he stumbled, hesitated, and could not explain how the same rare misspelling threaded through documents he claimed to have merely found. In the days that followed his collapse, Pigott confessed that the letters were fabrications and that he had forged them. The case that was meant to bury Parnell had instead unearthed the truth in open court. The newspaper's great proof was exposed as a fraud, and the man who built it had nowhere left to hide. Rather than face the consequences, Pigott fled. He slipped out of London and made his way across Europe to Madrid. When detectives traced him to a hotel near the city's Great Square, the Puerta del Sol, and came to arrest him, Pigott shot himself. He died on the 1st of March 1889, a forger undone by his own pen. His flight and his death were, in their own way, a final confession, sparing the courts the trouble of pronouncing what the evidence had already made plain. For Parnell, the vindication was total. He walked back into the House of Commons to a standing ovation, his name cleared in the most public way possible. He sued the Times for libel, and the newspaper, its case in ruins, settled the matter for £5,000. Its reputation and its finances took a heavy blow. The forged letters that were meant to end an Irish leader had instead humiliated the most powerful press in the world. It was a victory built not on grand speeches, but on a single misspelled word. The Pigott affair endures because of how the truth came out. There was no confession beaten out under pressure, no lucky accident. There was a careful advocate, a written record, and a habit the forger could not break. A man can disguise his politics and sell his loyalties, but he struggles to escape the small, fixed quirks of his own hand. In the end, Richard Pigott was not caught by a spy or a witness. He was caught by the way he spelled a word, set down in his own writing in front of the only audience that mattered.